Hello, guys. Welcome to Monitoring and Evaluation Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. If you're here for the very first time, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel because I post regular updates. So, if you're here for the first time, you may not know me very well, but if you're a returning consumer, I'm happy to have you here. Today, we're going to be looking at duties and responsibilities of an M&D manager. So, this is a short tutorial. You could be preparing yourself for an interview, or you could have won yourself a job as a manager. This is very important to go through. Let's go through it together because you need to perform effectively on your job. As usual, I have timestamps in the description below because this is quite long. I'm doing long videos this year and I want to spill out all the knowledge I have on monitoring and evaluation. So use the timestamps to skip part of the video which you don't want to hear and you want to go directly to what you want to hear at the right time. So what are the duties and responsibilities, guys? Okay, so those are all the duties and responsibilities of an M&D manager. Okay, I've listed them down and there are four there. Okay, and in the next slide, you've got uh, an addition of five. Okay, so in this presentation, we're going to look at each of these points together, and I'm going to highlight to you in detail, in so greater detail, on what these responsibilities mean in practice. Okay, so to start with, you need to get this thing clear at the very beginning. You know, in every organization, there's a hierarchy. And when it comes to M&D functions, you know, you've also got that hierarchy. And this is how it is in most cases. You've got the field staff, you've got the M&D officer, you've got the M&D manager, and you've got the overall director of the whole organization. So what this means is that at every stage of the process, each group is reporting to somebody. So the field staff, these are the ones who do the data collection. These are the eyes and ears of the M&D officer or the manager or the director. So these are the people who are doing the groundwork. They report to the M&D officer. The M&D officer reports to the manager, then the manager will report to the overall director. Okay. So as you can see already, you can begin to detect what the responsibility of this manager is. And maybe I can give you a hint. Looking at this hierarchy, you can see that the manager supervises his M&D officers. Okay, of course, I put one of M&D officer there, but there could be many officers that he's supervising. And those officers are supervising some field staff. So before I get any further, I want you to, after this presentation or even now, you can download these free guides, the logical framework analysis approach, step-by-step guide. It's totally free. I've also got the M&D guide for 2020. Please download these things. These are very free for download. And then I've got this course which I'm promoting. It's the baseline survey online course. All right. Sorry about the coupon code there. There's a coupon code if you can see just right there. If you enroll in this course today, you get this course at a discounted price. Same goes for the survey design online course. I would like you to enroll in this course. And you can get this course at a very discounted price. The link is in the description. Support M&D Made Simple, guys, so that we can champion M&D at a whole different level. So let's now get to the nitty-gritties of why you're here. Let's look at the duties and responsibilities of a manager one by one, okay? So let's get right into it. Okay, so the first duty of a manager is that he needs to develop the overall framework for the project's M&D system in collaboration with funders, senior project staff, including requirements, reporting, baseline evaluation surveys, develop, monitor the project's implementation. So What this is saying, guys, the first duty, if you're employed as a manager, basically what you need to focus your attention is improving the system of M&D in the organization. Some organizations may not have a very robust monitoring and evaluation system. But when you get on board, when you're employed as a manager, it is your role to ensure that this M&D system is robust. So what does that mean? It means that it should be a system that is fulfilling the requirements. Okay? It should be doing the right thing. It should be running correctly. You should be checking whether there are things that need to be improved, whether there are weaknesses. So, what you do, I can tell you that in my years of practicing monitoring and evaluation, the first thing I did when I saw that there's a system that is running but it has weaknesses, the first thing I did when I joined that organization or joined a certain project was to ensure that you do an M&D systems audit. And that audit is done in order to spot the weaknesses and see areas that need to be improved. So, what you are doing on this duty, your first duty is to ensure that the system is running. And you don't do it in isolation. You don't do it in isolation. You have to work with different stakeholders. Okay, you have to work with your project team. It could be you're working with your M&D officers or you're working with the field staff in perfecting the system. So once that system is strengthened, then can you be able to do a very good job when it comes to conducting baselines and evaluation surveys. Now, in case you don't know how to do this, like I earlier mentioned, there's those courses which I'm running on Udemy. Please enroll in those. Those tell you exactly how to do a baseline. And they also tell you how to conduct these evaluations the best way possible. So the second duty of the M&D manager is to ensure the alignment of research and M&D activities with program goals and contributes to the development of annual work plans to identify project targets and ensure inclusion of M&D activities. So what this is simply saying, guys, is that your second duty is to ensure that whatever M&D activities you're doing, it is well aligned to the organization's goals and objectives. And this brings me back to the point which I've always mentioned when dealing with different clients, when doing my consultancy, even on this forum, on this YouTube channel. I always emphasize that you have to ensure that whatever you're doing, it is well aligned to the log frame. And that is why I say that the logical framework matrix is the Bible for monitoring and evaluation because that is where you find the indicators and many other aspects. It is where you can come up with the logical framework, you can come up with an M&D plan, you can come up with an M&D framework with a work plan. So you can already see that this is a planning issue, and you have to ensure that even if you join an organization today, you find that it is not well aligned. Don't run with what the organization has been using. Try to correct the problem. Try to cure it using your expertise. And that way, whatever you'll be doing things the right way. You'll be achieving your project targets and you'll be reporting results. So now, the other duty of the M&D manager is to monitor project activities, tracking them. So now, in my experience, the manager doesn't have to actually do the actual monitoring, but he has delegated this responsibility to his subordinates. And in this case, the subordinates are the M&D officers and the field staff. So what this means is that he has to coordinate these staff to make sure that when they are doing their reports, one, they are reporting on time, two, they are reporting according to the project's goals and objectives. All right. Three, even when they're doing their report, it's within the resource base that has been designated for that activity. So now, as you can see, it should be reported, all results, all information should be reported against the results framework. And this is where sometimes it can get a little bit complicated because the M&D manager is relying on the skills of his subordinates. So his assumption is that information they are collecting is free from errors, is adequate, and it's of high quality, such that when they consolidate the report, his role will just be to review the reports and to ensure that these reports are making sense and also these reports are authentic. So he relies heavily on his subordinates, and that is why it's important. And as you can see, this function, this duty, is well linked to the other two duties. It all depends on how strong the M&D system is. So the manager needs to ensure that one, the M&D system is strengthened, and then even as he is monitoring the project, it is aligned to the results framework. Okay, so remember, there are timestamps in the description. Whenever you feel the need, you can skip, look around, try to appreciate whichever thing applies to what you're looking for. So then next duty, duty four, he needs to conduct field visits for data validation. So now, like I earlier mentioned before, the manager is relying on his subordinates for information. But sometimes the information that is being gathered from below him may not be to his expectations, or it may raise question marks. So it is only fitting that he needs to validate this data by means of actually doing the field visits himself. So now sometimes, the manager, what we are calling a manager, may not even be a manager in other organizations, because you see the way it is, when a donor gives you money as an implementing organization, they will have an M&D officer seated at their office who will come and do the validation visits to ensure that whatever data you are feeding the donors is actually authentic. So what this is telling us is you can't fully rely on what is coming from the grassroots or what is coming from your subordinates, but you have to go the extra mile to validate these findings to ensure that actually what is being reported is what is on the ground. So you need to obviously do site visitations. There might be need for additional data collection so that you can just spot check and compare notes to see whether the compilation and reporting of this data was actually done the right way and is authentic. So the next duty of a manager is to generate monthly indicator reports and tracking progress against key indicators. Okay, so he needs to ensure that it is done timely and accurate. So now, this is very, very, very important, guys. If you're a manager working for an organization that's receiving funds from maybe US aid, from the European Union, you have to make sure that whatever you do, your reports are done in a timely fashion. Sorry about that, in a timely fashion. So If the donors require the report to be submitted on a certain date, on a certain time of the year, make sure that by the time you finished your M&D activities, that report should be ready and submitted. So now to get a report submitted, you as a manager should know that there are internal processes in your organization that must ensure that that final report, the report that you want to submit, is to the quality, to the expectation of the donors. So as a manager, factor in the time of data collection, the time of data analysis, the time of reporting, the time of circulation of the draft report to your director. His That time should be factored in, including the time that your director will take to give you comments, to make adjustments, and then take it to the donors. Okay, so it's very important that you have to do these things the right way, because in every donor agreement, there's a designated date that they want you to have the report ready so that they can read it, analyze it, raise questions, and see how best corrective measures can be done. Another very important, guys, and I must mention this is by far one of the most important things that a manager should do, is to provide technical leadership and support to project and partner staff in planning and implementation of M&D systems and activities. Very important, because you see, in most cases, when somebody is employed as a manager, the whole idea is that he should be giving technical oversight to all M&D staff in that organization. All right. Anything to do with monitoring and evaluation, he should be the one responsible. There's no two way about it. It just has to happen that way. Because you see, guys, he is it is assumed that as a manager, you know everything that needs to be known about M&D in that organization. So you need to be a good leader. You need to also provide technical support to those in your team who need that support. And when we say technical support, there may be members of staff who have weaknesses when it comes to carrying out activities. So you have to be able to analyze the staffing capacity in your unit, analyze that, identify the weaknesses, and personally offer help to improve on those weaknesses. Because if those people fail to do their job, they won't blame those people, but they're going to blame you as the manager because you did not it does not reflect well. It does not reflect that you have the right capacity to lead. So you need to ensure that all the weaknesses are strengthened. You strengthen them, you make them positive so that it contributes even positively to your work as a leader. Then another duty as an M&D manager, you need to develop monitoring tools. Okay? Of course, these tools, you might be employed for an organization and then you find that tools have already been developed. What do? You can even improve on those already existing tools. But for areas where these tools have not been developed, you need to develop new tools. I have a video on this channel that talks about monitoring and evaluation tools. Please, if you have time, try to look at that video. It talks about the M&D tools that are used in carrying out these activities. So now, what does this mean? Does it mean that you personally have to do the development of tools by yourself as a manager? That is not what it necessarily means. But everything you do, try to do it in consultation with your team, your M&D team. You can invite your M&D officer, your field staff to a workshop, or you can invite them, I mean, to a meeting. You discuss these things. You try to come up with a harmonized approach of dealing with such matters, because tools are really those instruments you use to collect data. So you have to come up with tools that respond very well to the objectives of the project. Because there've been times, like in my experience, there've been times when you develop a tool, but maybe you forget to include a very important component that is supposed to collect data on a certain indicator. And by the time you realize it, it is too late and the donors are asking for their reports. So you need to ensure that these tools are done the right way, involve the right people, and most importantly, I think what is also important is to test these tools, pilot test them. That way you'll be able to see, okay, this tool I've developed has these weaknesses. We need to correct these weaknesses as soon as possible before we actually start using them. Okay, this is by far very, very important. Okay, you need to offer that support when it comes to the midterm evaluations or final project evaluations. You know, the director of an organization, he does not have he probably does not have the expert understanding of M&D, such that if he's called to a meeting, he's not going to speak from without. He'll have to rely on information that you as a manager are feeding him. So when it comes to these midterm and final project evaluations, he is relying on you to make sure that everything is done the right way. Because when the donors come and ask your director questions, he won't say as if he's talking, he won't say explain things by just saying, okay, maybe imagine your name. Okay, let's say, for example, your name is John. He won't say, no, John told me this. No, he is going to tell the donors as if it was he himself or herself doing these activities. That is the delicate role that a director has in an organization. So you need to really support him. You need to feed him information. You need to openly tell him what is actually happening as regards the M&D system. He needs to be made fully aware. And when the midterm evaluation comes, if the evaluators, the consultants identify that there are certain weaknesses in the M&D system that need to be strengthened, your director won't be surprised because you would have already told him that. Okay, so it's always good to be transparent and honest with your director. So, what are the qualities of an M&D manager? He must be hardworking, all right? And like in my experience, usually the managers are the ones who should be working overtime. Although I'm not saying you should, but I mean, you have a mammoth task, so you have to take the front line, you have to be the front runner. You just need to be working hard all the time. Then you have to be willing to adapt to changing circumstances. Sometimes what I've realized is that you might want something, you might want a perfect system. You might say that, okay, in order to run this system, for example, we need 10,000 US dollars, okay, every quarter. But let's say they're giving you 5,000 US dollars every quarter to run the M&D system. Does that mean you should stop doing work? No, they won't expect that from you. Actually, they would want you to adapt. So it's very important, even if the circumstances change, You need to adapt your situation. Right now, as we are talking, many countries around the world are under lockdown. Okay. And this has frozen many economies. People have lost their jobs. But for those companies that are still running, they've had to improvise. And this is where now you've seen the use of apps, mobile apps like Zoom, coming into effect. Google just recently launched a feature on the Gmail account, which is called Google Meetings. So everywhere you go, people are adapting to different changing circumstances. And it can be scary at times, but that is just how it is. So as M&D manager, people are looking up to you. You have to be able to adjust without other things being under threat. You definitely need to have strong interpersonal skills. And when we say interpersonal skills, you shouldn't be a bully. You know how a bully is. A bully is a kind of person who wants to be feared, who wants to instill fear on the subordinates, bossy, things like that. There was a time I was supervised by one of my M&D managers, and it was a very good experience I had. That is how it should be. When you are working with somebody, there should be that good working relationship, such that it shouldn't be a kind of relationship where you're always on your toes. No, but it should be friendly, it shouldn't be hostile, but it should be a very calm environment. Everybody should know their roles. Everybody should do their job. That is what is important. So, as manager, try to instill hard work in your subordinates. Try to help them understand that this is really work, and for you to get paid, for you to get income, for you to get your paycheck, you have to do this work. It has to be done according to the stipulated deadlines. Otherwise, everybody gets affected. So there's always a way to do that. Okay, then another thing is you must have strong leadership skills. This has really been talked about. I've talked about it. And the reason is that if things don't happen the way you expect, it is not the failure of your subordinate staff, but it is your failure. So as manager, you have to ensure that you do your best to provide strong, inspiring leadership. And then another thing is must be able to work under pressure and beat deadlines. There are times when you produce a good M&D report, you think you've produced a good report, but you find that the people who are reading it, they are criticizing it, they are saying, no, this is a bad report. Why did you write it like this? It should be like that. And all that builds pressure. And then they'll come lump you with so many comments. You have to leave the office. Perhaps you've got an appointment with your wife, or if you are a woman, you have an appointment with your husband for dinner, and then they're lumping all these comments on you, and they're saying you have to work late. All that is pressure. So you have to be able to manage that pressure, and then you need to also be able to beat deadlines. And that is why it's good to look ahead. If you know that your managers or your supervisors are in the habit of lumping so much last minute stuff on you, you need to ensure that, okay, let me have the report ready so that even if they had so many comments on me, I'll still be able to beat the deadline. Okay, so you have to think outside the box. All right, so I should think this is where the presentation ends. I don't know, I don't want to go to the next slide because I'm thinking this is where I ended. So I'm so happy you took the time to listen to this presentation. Don't forget to enroll for those courses at a discounted price. And also write to me. I mean, I'll be happy to respond to any emails. My email is on this channel, so you can write to me. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I'm so glad to have been with you. Until we meet again, see you on